All right. Oh my gosh. Hatch, what does that say? Hatch Reels, Vista, California. What is Hatch Reels?
Fly fishing reels.
I think I would know that, but I don't.
Yep. I'm a,
I know you're a fly fisherman, right?
I'm a deeply religious fly fisherman. Yeah.
Me too.
Hard being in Texas doing that.
Me too. I love fly fishing. I live in
Good.
Arizona. Yeah. Oh my God, I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are we living in states that? Well, I have no excuse. Arizona does have fly fishing.
Yeah. You have some options. I have fire ants and bass, which does not
Bass is
translate the
Bass
same.
is okay.
It's okay. It's okay. But it's, people down here ask me if I go fly fish here. And I do a little bit. I go on the Brazos and I'll hike the Brazos and go up the sandbanks. But it's not the same as I'm used to traveling these rivers in Montana where you don't see anybody all day and it's gin clear and
Yeah.
it's a completely different thing.
It's a religion,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you're
Yeah.
out in the temple of God
Yeah.
when you're walking those streams, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you catch a fish.
It's such a whole different, and it is, that's my church. It's a whole different thing. So it's I have to get my fix. So I sneak up to Chama from here in New
Mm,
Mexico or up to the different Conejo and different spots, or I'll
yeah,
break down and go to Montana about 4 times a year.
4 times a year. Okay, well
I'm getting better. I'm getting better at it. I'm making myself go up there more often so that I can stay sane while I'm here in the studio. So
so.
yeah.
I've got Teal Blake on, by the way. We've already started, but just so you know, everybody now knows we love fishing. But so why not just live in Montana?
Um, I moved down here close to 17 or 18 years ago now.
Right.
Kind of be close to the horse world. We show horses competitively, or did for a long time, and this is kind of the mecca for it. And I went and got married, and then went through one of those wonderful divorces. And so part of that is I've got my wonderful son, and I stay down here for that. The
Okay.
second he graduates, I will be gone.
Okay.
I will be in a line shack in Montana.
And where in Montana, do you know?
I don't care. You know, I was raised up in Augusta,
Right.
um, just below Glacier, and then I went back and ran a ranch out of Big Timber for a while for some dear friends of ours, and I like that area because I can be near a shipping place to get artwork out, or an airport if I need to be, or go grab some decent food really quick, and then still be out in the middle of nowhere pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know?
You
And
don't
it's got
mind winters. You can deal with
back to the fishing thing. There's all the great, the Yellowstone and the Boulder are two of my favorite rivers,
them.
so I try to stay by that area.
Yeah. I mean, I fell in love with Montana just a couple years ago when I went out to the Charlie Russell for their event, and I was like, and I always was afraid that was going to happen. There was something I just knew that was going to be the case. Oh my God, what a place! It's
It's
unbelievable.
it's it's incredible, and everybody just like that. I've heard that 1,000 times from people that have never been there before, and then they go, and it's just this
Yeah,
whole new world.
yeah. I knew it
But
would, especially with the fishing, because
yeah,
it's just everywhere. And so
yeah.
now you kind of grew up. We might as well just start with where you grew up. You grew up in that area, right? In Montana.
I did. I was born in Helena, and I was raised for most of my life up in Augusta, little town, 8 kids in my class, little ranching community.
Where is that? Where is Augusta?
Augusta is about 75 miles north by northeast from Helena, 30 miles south of Shoto.
Okay.
And so just below Glacier, right on the eastern slope of the Rockies.
Oh yeah. I'm sure it's beautiful.
The windier side of Montana.
Yeah, got it. All right.
Yeah.
And, and so your dad is a very famous painter and
Mm-hmm.
sculptor, and tell us a little bit about him, if you would, because he's kind of legendary.
Dad, James Coke Blake, he goes by Buckeye Blake.
Yep.
Um,
Why
he
is
got
that, by the way? I
he
always wanted to know why he went by that.
I've gotten this question a bunch, and it's a great story. His father rodeoed and did border patrol, and they lived. My father was born in Southern California, but they lived in Southern California and Arizona for a long time, and they lived out of Buckeye, Arizona for a long time, and that's right after he was born, and he was one and a half, and they were at the rodeo there, and they'd been living there for a little bit, and that was one of the first words he said was Buck.
Mm.
They were in the town, and so they started calling him Buck, and that was his nickname for years. So but yeah, he grew up rodeoing and living on ranches with his father, and uh, painting, doing sign painting and making a living, kind of getting by that way.
Mm. And so when did he go, okay, I've got to become a artist? Or,
You know, I would assume it was probably the time I was born when mom probably put the hammer down and said, okay, that's it.
mhm.
They moved from a ranch where they got rained out. If it would rain, it turned it to gumbo out of
Mm.
Helena, and the rattlesnakes were bad. And mom said, that's it. We're moving to town. And so we went to a little town of about population 600, and dad put up a little studio, and kind of that was it. We had horses and still had a little place out of town, but it was serious after that moment. I watched that my entire life, dad cranking out work.
Hmm. And so you started drawing really early, right? I mean, you were like just a little kid when you started doing that stuff, right?
Yeah, we had well, there wasn't a lot to do back then, and especially in the winters in Montana.
Right.
Um, and so it was scrap mat board left over from dad's studio and scratching out stuff and looking at Will James pictures.
And reading his books probably when you could get
Yep.
to reading. And so your mother also, doesn't she have artistic background?
Yeah, she did a lot of design work, and she was a photojournalist for quite a while, and has a great eye. She can't draw a stick person, and she has a doctor's handwriting, but she has a wonderful eye, and she was friends with Richard Avedon and a ton of great, just
Well,
true artists of that time period. And
let's hear about that Richard Avedon. I mean, that's a big name.
it's a big name that not a lot of people know anymore. He used to come to our house in Montana and take a lot of shots up there, and was good friends with my parents. And so I had people like that coming in constantly into our household that
Wow.
were, to me, were true artists, true artists. And to get to see that, and I mean, it soaks into you.
Yeah. Was he coming just to see your mom?
He would be coming through. He came up there. My mom was instrumental in introducing him to the Hutterites. And so when he did a lot of his Hutterite photography of that colony up there, that was right by our house. And so
Hmm.
mom introduced him and took him out there. And she'd known him from photography from years back. And so he came up and shot a lot of that stuff and would come hang out every now and then.
There's at the Amon Carter right now, they have Richard Avedon throughout the
Mhm.
museum. They've paired it with different things, which is really interesting. I don't know if you've seen it, you're right there, but
I've seen, I haven't seen this one that's up currently. I saw it the last time it was up, which has probably been 10 years ago, maybe more. His images were so iconic to see for me at a young age, because they were dirty, but they were simple and clean, and he had just this great way of capturing his characters, I guess is the best way for me to put it.
yeah.
He really had this emotion with them.
Yeah, there's a reality when you see one of those photographs,
Mhm.
you can feel the person, often the angst and the hardness and the
Yes.
thing that they've lived through, whatever that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know if you ever took a photo of you or your family?
I don't know. I know he took pictures of mom and dad. I don't know if he ever took any of me.
Yeah.
Um, there's one that mom has of him and I together. He was holding me. He wanted to take a picture of a bunch of round bales in a pasture, and so there's a picture of that somewhere. I can try to dig that out.
Oh yeah, that you should. That would be awesome. That's very
Yep.
nice. So you have that in your background. Your mom's clearly, an artist as well. She's just comes at it at a different angle.
Yes.
So, and do you have brothers and sisters?
I don't. I'm an only child. I think probably that was another thing that made me keep busy and find things to do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different thing, I think, when you're an only child. I do.
It is.
You
My
know.
my son's an only child, and as active as I am with him, and we're constantly doing stuff, he's also got such a wonderful imagination from being an only child and coming up with stuff and inventing things. And I was very much that way when I was little.
Yeah, it seems like you grow up faster. I don't know if that's the case. I wasn't an only child, but it seems like the attention is there and the children get treated more like adults.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I know Josh Moyers, his parents, Terry and John that's their only child. And I've known him since a little kid. And he was always exceptionally adult-like in a lot,
Yes.
in a lot of ways.
Yes.
Yes. And so you're growing up in this and you know immediately that you are interested in art. It makes sense, right? Both of your parents are artistic. Your dad's a successful artist and sculptor. And that's one thing I think people don't realize maybe about your dad, but he's got some big sculptures, like the Charlie Russell's one that he's got one, right?
Charlie Russell, Kit Carson.
Yep.
He's done 4 or 5 pretty big monumental pieces.
Mm-hmm. And have
Yeah.
you done any of that yourself?
I, I've done a couple little sculptures just to play around with, ideas that I really wanted to try out. There's others that I'd like to do. Honestly, with the trouble at all the foundries right now, I don't want to touch it with a stick. I've got sculptor buddies, and everybody's having so much trouble at the foundries, and it just I'll stick to the paper and canvas a little bit longer for now.
And when you say they have troubles, is because prices are going up. There's
I,
back.
th- I think it's the price is going up. Hard to find people that want to work. Same with everything right now. It seems like it's hard to find people that want to be there and work, and the time, and everything's pushed back. It seems 6 or 7 months, and
Yeah,
so
yeah, I get it.
I think everybody's experiencing this right now.
Yeah, I mean, I do hear it from my sculptors,
Yeah.
or I get a, hey, we're doing a price increase.
Yep. Yep.
And it's like, yeah, we can't replace what we're selling at the same,
No.
which is a very difficult thing for an artist, it's very competitive. You have to deal
Yeah.
with the secondary market out there doing it. And then, the cost of doing bronze, if it doubles, I mean, I can't even imagine, honestly.
Yeah. And everybody wants a deal these days. It, it's an interesting thing. Sculpture, when I was younger, it used to be such a neat thing, and it was great. The sculptors could do so many additions, and they were looked at as quality. And I don't know if maybe sculpture isn't the coolest thing to own nowadays, or what it is, but I mean, there's some incredible sculptures out there I would love to have that I've seen that I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But the trouble to go through and get one now of anything made, if you are a creator yourself, it's kind of put a damper on it.
Yeah, and I haven't talked to John Coleman about this, but you probably maybe have a better understanding. But he's really started doing a lot more with painting and drawing,
Yeah.
and of course, super talented in that field too.
I see some other sculptors messing with resin right now as well, calling it a cold cast so that they can kind of do some other things maybe at a lower price point and not have to worry about the foundry so much.
Yeah. So okay, we'll take sculptor off your thing
Perfect.
until somebody comes up to you and says, "I want you to do this, and I'll pay you a bunch of money."
Right.
Then you might try
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so you're growing up in Montana, and are you fishing? And I know you like lizards like me, lizards and snakes and things. So you're out in the field looking at that stuff, right? You were interested in that from an early age, right?
I wanted to go into zoology. I was a complete nut for reptiles when I was a little kid. If I saw a turtle in Montana, which was rare, I had to catch it. I was in the pond catching it. Dad was always afraid I was going to get bit by a rattlesnake because the second I'd see a snake, I was chasing it and catching it.
Yeah.
And it was constant. You and I talked about this. I still get excited. My boy is such a freak about it, the same as I was. We've got
Yeah.
a box turtles here, lizards here in cages everywhere we've caught. Um, but I like where I was in Montana. I was raised with the ability to have animals everywhere, and so I think I was very fortunate to be raised that way and have that access to catching things and having them as pets and being raised out with the critters. And so not a lot of people have that ability anymore, I don't think.
No, that's probably true. I mean, I did the same thing, but it was with pretty much all herps and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a shed that was in the back where I kept all my reptiles, and
Yeah.
occasionally I'd bring a snake bring it into my room and put it underneath my bed.
Yep. Yep.
No, but and my mom hated those things, but she was a biologist, and so was my father. So
Uh-huh.
that was where I was headed. I was like, my degree was in biology, and I
Yep.
thought about herpetology as a profession. I seriously thought about it, but I'm glad I didn't. I'd rather
Had
catch them.
I remember at one point in Augusta, Montana, I had a huge cage in my room with two giant iguanas, big green iguanas. I had a ball python, a red tail boa, probably 15 tokay geckos. I had more, and I'm probably the only person in Montana that had that much exotic stock at the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
lot.
But it was great. I loved it. I had stuff loose all the time in the house, and my
Yeah.
mom hated a bit of it, but It's part of it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I had the iguana. I had the boa too, which I had to.
Yeah.
I took the boa with me to college, but that didn't work out so well in the dorm. So I had to donate that to the museum.
Yep.
So when you get and so in high school, were you thinking, okay, and I'm assuming you are because just from what I know about you, that you were going, okay, I think art's it. That's where I'm headed.
I didn't know it for a lot longer after that. I didn't realize what I had for a long time, I guess is the better way to put it. Mom and dad drugged me to all this art stuff constantly when I was little.
Right.
We went and saw Van Goghs, and I went to London, and I saw so much work, incredible work. At the time, I just wanted to ranch and be a cowboy like the rest of the kids that I was being raised around. So it wasn't necessarily the top of my list. I was still doing it naturally. I drew on everything without thinking about it in class. I was in trouble all the time for drawing on everything. When I was home, I was drawing, but I wasn't necessarily admitting that that's what I was doing. It was kind of on the back burner for me for a long time, and I got into rodeo. We moved from Montana to Sun Valley, Idaho, just to be kind of better business for dad and probably some better education for me in school. And it was kind of a neat area. And they had a high school rodeo team, and so I started rodeoing, and it fed into what I wanted to do anyways for a while. So it wasn't till about maybe 2002, 2003, and I was still painting a little bit, but not seriously. Uh, where it was a weird switch just went off,
Hmm.
and it was time. It was okay. I've played around enough, and it's time to drag the easel out. And that was the first time where I actually thought, okay, now I know that that's what I'm going to do, and this is the time that I start it, and now it begins.
Hmm.
And it was a very odd thing. I didn't enter any rodeos anymore. I was going to a ton of stuff and roping a lot. I just kind of stayed with the ranching thing, which I'd always done, and I was content. It was I guess it was meant to happen eventually, and I just kind of kept putting it off for a little bit.
So when you're doing all this, you're working as a cowboy and you're rodeoing. Is that right? And in high
Yeah.
school, you did you were on the rodeo team.
I was team roping and riding bulls.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it paid for my college. I got my scholarships through riding bulls, and it paid for college. And
So you were on the rodeo team in college,
yeah,
and you did
yeah.
that all 4 years.
Montana. No, I did it. I did it at Montana State for 2 years, and then I transferred to Cal Poly. And then I started working for. I worked for a cutting horse trainer. I worked for the Hearst Ranch actually when I was in California, breaking colts and working for a cutting horse trainer that was there.
Mhm. This is
And
after college.
this was during college. This was my third year of college. I transferred to Cal Poly, and so I was out in San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I I just didn't want to go to school anymore. My art teacher wasn't happy with me, and I didn't want to be there, and I just quit college. I went to rodeoing really hard for from there for about probably 5 years.
Hmm. So you were in art school though when you were in college.
I was taking all my art classes, and I flunked them miserably.
And why do you think that is?
I wasn't I wasn't a studious person. I have a very hard time going with the same direction as everybody else. I
Okay.
guess is the better way to put it.
Yeah.
And it felt like it was very much controlled in the box things that the instructors were having me do. Um, Looking back, I'm sure I was immature and playing and wanting to do other stuff, and my mind just wasn't there. And I'm sure they were frustrated with that. And I mean, if I could go back and take those classes, I would. I would love to learn. I see so many great artists that were classically trained, and to have that talent and to be able to see that stuff, it's wonderful. Why not use it as a tool? At the time, I was more worried about climbing on bulls and going to the next rodeo. So I wasn't too worried about it then.
And so when you go, okay, I've had enough, and that would be like kind of your third year of college.
Yeah, yeah,
So, and then you decided I'm going to go ahead and professionally rodeo or
yeah. I didn't have a long game plan, and nobody that rodeos really does at that point when you're young. It's
yeah,
kind of it's a rock star life, and I had three or four good buddies that were all really good, and we traveled, and it's an experience on top of just the rodeoing. It's a whole camaraderie about it.
yes.
Uh, and so I did that for a while, pretty hard. And it was stressful on my parents
And you on your
and
body.
me, and knowing that it was eventually figuring out that it is a short-term thing. It's not a long-term deal. And I had my buddies that were getting busted up pretty bad. And then you see the older guys that you looked up to at the same time that were pumping gas and working at, a used car lot.
Right.
I wanted to have my own ranch one day and be able to pay for it. And there was images in my head that I wanted to get out on paper. Um, and so it just kind of it ran its course, I think is what happened.
And how many years was that?
I rodeoed professionally from high school till about so from 96 to 2003, 2004. So not a huge run, long enough to pay for a little bit of
Seven
college
years.
and have fun and get out of it fairly unscathed.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I bet you use every day of those times that you were on those bulls and the horses and stuff. I'm sure those floodback imagery wise when you're painting and drawing as well, though.
it does, and it's incredible the constant knowledge that it saved and everywhere I've been and all the stuff. And when I'm working on stuff and I'll smell something as it was, or remember the dust or the color of the dust, and dust is different everywhere. And uh, it all adds to the experiences, I guess is the best way to put it.
And so when you're doing rodeo, then you're also working at the Hearst Ranch.
So when I was out there, I would get up at midnight. I would drive to the ranch. We would start working horses at 2 or 3 in the morning and work horses till about 6. And then I would drive from Paso Robles over the hill to San Luis Obispo, go to class all day, go back to work in the afternoon. That was during the weeks. And then on the weekends, generally Thursday afternoon, I was in the truck going off somewhere and crawling on bulls all weekend, and then get back late Sunday night and do it all again.
Yeah. I would say that the reason you dropped out of school was you were so busy. You had
Yeah.
so much other things, to try to keep that schedule and then be focused on doing art. Something's got to give, right?
No, William Matthews is a dear friend of mine and my family's, and I got to go stay with him one time years ago at his place in Denver.
Yes.
And we were visiting, and Willie's a funny cat, if anybody on here knows him or if you've met him much.
Yeah. I've
And
done a podcast with him.
he's such a good guy and so intelligent about it. And I grew up watching his watercolors and seeing that style. And he said to me, I'm there and I'm all excited. I'm getting in the art world, and so green, I'm sure, compared. And I'm sure he's just looking at me like, what a green asshole you are. And he says, you can't be a cowboy and be an artist. You can't do both. You got to pick one or the other. And at the time, I'm sure, this wasn't probably a year or two after I'd quit my art classes, where I kind of thought, yeah, you can do both. But I understand it now. You really can't. The time doesn't allow for it.
Yeah.
You can do both a little bit, and you can do 10 things a little bit. But if you want to do something really, really good, you can't do all those other things, and definitely not cowboying.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
It,
very
it
tough
takes
job.
up too much time.
Yeah. And energy too, physical energy.
Yeah.
You're exhausted and then you're going to stand behind an easel and paint. Yeah. That has to
You,
be.
I alternate where I'll get on the easel and I'll work until I get kind of stale, and then I feel it's ready to get back out horseback again.
Mhm.
And then I'll go work on some ranches for a bit, and then I can kind of tell when I'm recharged and okay, I'm ready to get back on the easel.
And do you still do that?
I do.
Yeah. Interesting. And how long will you recharge for? Are we talking a day or are we talking a week?
I used to go a lot longer, Mark. I would go spring and fall gather on these ranches, and I'd be gone for 30 days in the spring and 40 days in the fall.
Yeah.
Come home and paint. But it changes when you have a little kid running around and commissions and other stuff happening. So now it's maybe a week or two in the spring and maybe a week or two in the fall.
And what is it that does for you? Do you know? Does it bring you back to ground you?
It grounds me. There's a simplicity of it to me where I can kind of tune out everything and just go back to where I was raised. It's like a comfort food.
Mm.
And so I can go back to that, and it's my comfort zone, and I can just detach from whatever, and I know how to do it, and I'm comfortable there, and I'm more comfortable there than I am in town. And so I can just do whatever I need to do and unwind and come up with more ideas and quit worrying about traffic for a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. We all need that.
everybody does.
Quite
Everybody does.
frankly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just you've clearly found out your routine, your rhythm.
Yeah.
And you've been doing that your whole life, pretty much.
I've been doing it my whole life. I, I, I'm getting better at the work ethic part of it,
Yeah.
but, yeah, I've cowboyed and then going back to the paper on and off since I was probably 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah. And so when you finally it clicks and you go, okay, I can't be a rodeo guy. I'm older. This is a hard life. Doesn't pay well. Um, and I can
I'll
make it
be an artist. I'll be an artist.
be an artist. Yeah. And so that's about 20 plus years ago, would you say?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what was that journey like when you go, okay, this is what I'm going to do?
I'd watch dad do it so long and make it. I'd watch my father do it so long and make a good living at it. Not a huge great living, but a good living, to provide for his family and do good and keep his head down and work. And he loved it. I watched my dad love his artwork and do it because it's a passion of his. And so I think because I saw somebody else do it, I knew I could do it. Watching somebody, I knew that going through the motions, and this is how you do it. If you want to do it, you better get real serious about it. So when I quit entering rodeos and ropings, I thought, okay, if I'm going to do this, I don't want to just donate. I might as well be serious about it. I've watched dad be serious. I don't want to tread on that. I don't want to tread on any artist that's come before me and done that. So I started painting. I started sending stuff to dad and other artists I knew. I wrote shoe fly letters.
Hmm.
I wrote illustrated letters to every artist I knew for probably the first 3 years. Walt LaRue was a great old guy that was around forever and a stuntman in Hollywood, and he would send me letters back. And I would get critiques from anybody that would look at my work, good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I figured if you're going to get better, you better be willing to take the ass whipping a little bit and pay your dues. So I entered a whole bunch of art shows my first year. I did some pieces that I thought, okay, these I can do better, but this is as good as I can do now. And I entered the Fippen show and drove out to Arizona and set up a tent and got rained on for a week and sold some stuff and won an award. And it was enough to go, okay, I can keep doing this. Just that little pat on the back helped.
Yeah, it makes a difference, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. It's you never know what people are going to think of your work. And you're, an artist, you're really putting it all out there for people to judge you. So it's a very sensitive topic to do that and then go, okay, tell me what you hate about it.
Right.
Uh, or don't buy my work or buy my work
Right.
or whatever it is. And so that's a whole different monster going from rodeo to sitting there twiddling my thumbs in a tent, wondering if I'm going to sell anything, if I can get home or not. But yeah,
Yeah, those are the moments when you go, okay, you're either an artist or you're not, because that's
yeah,
part of what you have to put into it, right?
it is.
I
It
mean,
is.
I've done shows. I can remember doing a show one time in Seattle. First show, we didn't sell one thing,
Mhm.
and it was like, okay, I've never had that happen. So, but what I did is I ran around the show and bought stuff because people were having such a horrible show. They
Yeah,
were willing to sell things that I could get, and and it allowed me to make money because I was able to buy. I didn't just go, okay, well, I'm not going to make any money. I guess I'll go home. No, I instead I went and spent money so I
yeah,
could make money.
yeah,
So you got to, you just got to learn from those things and get through them. But
yeah.
no, I can relate, but on a different, not creating, but still trying to sell the artwork. I get it.
I think there's something about earning it yourself and getting through the hard times that make it a little bit sweeter when you finally, even if it's just one little sale or you're just getting by enough where you're like, okay, I'm doing something right here. It's a good feeling.
Mm-hmm. And what was your mom and dad saying about when you go, I'm going to be an artist? Because I mean, they knew the road for sure.
They knew the road. Mom didn't say much. The very first commission I ever took, I put a little ad in the Quarter Horse Journal for doing horse head drawings for people, and they were $400.
Yeah.
And this was, I figured if I'm gonna, if I, I figured if I did this, this could be, some mailbox money to get me by while I do the other pieces, just some constant work, some commission work. So I got the first commission, and I had to drive about an hour from here to take a picture of this lady's horse for her, and she wasn't even here. She was 4 states away. And I go take pictures of this horse, and I go home and I work on this pencil of this horse head for a week,
Yeah.
longer than I do any paintings now. Uh, and it was this great piece. And I sent her the picture of it, and then I sent her the original. And back then I didn't, you didn't get any money down. You trust everyone. And she calls me and she says, "This is beautiful." I said, "Well, great. I'm so happy that you're happy with it." And she says, "But I don't think it's worth $400. And I said, you pay me what you think it's worth." And she sent me $100 in the mail. And Mom was there when the check came, and she just kind of sat there and she smiled and walked away. And that was all I got out of her. So I think she knew I knew enough that there was going to be some hard times in there
Yeah.
with that. But
And what did you think when that happened?
I thought, man, I just need to get better. Apparently the piece isn't good enough, and I better get better.
Yeah. You
And
didn't
so,
think he's taking advantage of me?
but yeah, well, I think she did, now that I look back at it,
Yeah, of
but
course you did.
but I'm sure I was very green, so it was due for me as well.
Yeah. I had that same experience as a kid mowing lawns and cleaning houses on the,
Yeah.
yeah. And I had a lady take advantage of me like that. I said, "No, you just pay me what you think how good a job I did." And I
Yeah.
worked all day, and she gave me like, $5. And I was like,
Yeah.
"That's it? I cleaned everything." Oh, that's what we usually give them. And I thought, okay, I will never make that mistake again.
Yeah.
Set my price structure before I
That-
ever clean another lawn. So
it's a valuable lesson.
yeah. And what about your dad? What was he thinking when you're doing this?
Uh, he was really supportive. I think they were probably both pretty happy I wasn't getting on bulls anymore.
I bet.
And I hope he would have told me if my work was really bad. He would have said, "Hey, you don't have it. You need to stop now."
Yeah.
And so he was good with the critiques, and he was hard with the critiques. I think probably he knew I knew enough by that age that he didn't need to sugarcoat it anymore.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think he was overly pretty supportive about the whole deal. They always teased of, just like I do with my boy. I say, "Well, maybe you need to be a vet or a doctor. I don't know if you need to do this." And I ask him, "What do you want to do?" He says, "I want to be a cowboy and an artist." I'm like, "Oh my God." So
Yeah, well, there's nothing you do about it. Just
nothing I can do.
let them follow their dream. I think that's what you do. And so you're doing shows, and what happens then? Do you get a gallery? Are you doing it all on your own? I mean, you have a sounding board with William Matthews and your dad and things like that, but what do you do?
Yeah, Brad at Legacy Gallery reached out to me,
Yeah.
wanted to represent me, and so I sent them some stuff, and they started selling a couple things, and I just kind of kept plugging away a little bit. I wasn't I wasn't cranking out as much as I am now, because I was still ranching a lot and at the time and going to stuff. So I would go work horses or work cattle for a week or two, and I would come home and knock out 4 or 5 pieces in a couple of days. And I wasn't doing anything large. A 16 by 20 was a large piece to me then. And so I was doing a lot of little vignettes and horse studies and stuff that was easy to sell. I was trading a lot of it to other cowboys for shaps and spurs, and they couldn't afford this stuff even at my prices then, and I wanted them to have it more than I did some person from the city that didn't appreciate it.
Right.
That was really more important to me than any of it, and it really still is, because I know they have such a love for it, more than anybody else will, and they have a connection to it. So I started doing that, and slowly, it was weird. I would go to ranches and people started knowing who I was in the ranching community, and it started kind of to grow.
Hmm.
Uh, and then I took a job in Montana, running a ranch for Tom McGuane up out of Big Timber. And I went up there for about 2 years, and I got snowed in and created a whole bunch of work, and started doing a bunch of 20 by 30s, and just had one of those good Charlie Russell winters where I you could just enjoy the work, and that's what I was there to do. And I'd go check horses and cattle in the morning, and go back to the easel all day long and watch it snow.
Mm.
Uh, and I got a call from somebody in the CA. Bruce Green called me from the CA, Cowboy Artists of America, and they asked if I'd submit some work for them. And it just kind of kept picking up.
And that was like 2014 or so.
2014, they put me in the CA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that had to be a hell of a deal. That's a
It
big deal.
was scary, Mark. Man, wow.
I bet.
Uh, I was cocky, but I knew my work wasn't that good.
Yeah.
So it was a real eye opener. I'd followed that group for so long. I mean, everybody in the art world has, and you saw who came out of there, and Terpnings and Lovell and all the talent that had come out of that group. You don't realize how close they are once you get in there, and it's kind of a little family.
Mhm.
Um, but I think the first thing, I got in there and they voted me in, and I sat in the meeting, and they were getting in arguments about stuff and working out business, and you kind of just hit the ground running. And I thought, man, I better do something really good now. Um, and I immediately, the second we got out of there, I went back to my hotel room in Oklahoma City, and I started sketching out my piece for the next year. And I sketched out a big 30 by 40 Remuda piece with like 30 horses in it, or 40 horses in it.
Mhm.
Um, I think having that, not necessarily a competition, but being around other great artists, man, it sparked something where I wanted to go, okay, I can
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah. Bring your game up.
Yeah, yeah. And why not? Why not push and try to get better with your craft?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you competed to make money in the rodeo. I mean, that's hardwired into your brain, I think, probably.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
do that. Yeah, that's
Well,
a that's a good thing in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. I mean, hopefully nobody strives to be mediocre.
Yeah.
Uh,
There are people
so
that do though.
yeah, yeah, they're happy. And there's people that are happy with it, I guess.
Yeah, there are.
But yeah, I, uh, I don't know. You see people be barn blind about certain work where, and I hope I don't ever get that. And I hope my art friends slap me if I am. But when you get better and you work on a piece and you get through it, and to put all that time in, and whatever references you took or the miles you spent on it, but to fight through that piece and get it done, it's a wonderful feeling, not just to sell it at the end, but to accomplish something like that.
Hmm.
That's the journey of it. And it's this great thing to have and create something on your own.
So you do
So,
this big piece for the next year for the CA with all these horses and the Remuda.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
how was that? How did that go with that piece?
Everybody loved it. That piece didn't sell, which was fine. I sold other work. I had a good show. That piece ended up getting purchased from the Booth Museum, and so it rests there now. Um,
That's a big deal.
it was a big deal. I was
Yeah.
tickled. Um, it was a that was a big step for me, going from I'm going to paint what I want when I want, to being in a group with the cowboy artists, and hey, I have to have 7 pieces that are my best pieces here every year.
Right.
Uh,
And
and
they
that,
get and they also have to be vetted in too, right? It's
and they have to be vetted. We jury everything and still even into the show once you're in the group.
yes.
So it's an eye opener. It really is. Um, I really enjoyed getting to be around these other artists. The seniority of it, the knowledge, and so I guess it goes back to that art class. I think now, if I had the chance, I would sit through those art classes happily and learn.
Sure.
Uh, I'm at that stage. I'm ready. But, and so getting to be around these other cowboy artists and learn from these guys, and it's just invaluable.
Mhm. And so now you're the president of that. Cool.
I'm actually the president of the Joe Beeler Foundation, which is our educational branch.
Okay.
I've been president of the main group, of our main board. We have 2 boards.
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, I'm helping a lot with the education now, doing some classes and setting up stuff for students, workshops, scholarships.
Yeah. And so tell me a little bit about that. I didn't even know about that part.
Um, I think I might have been the first one to get one. When Joe Beeler passed, the CA decided to do something really neat in remembrance of him with education. And so they had some great backers give some money and set up a 501(c)(3) to help with scholarships for art students.
Mhm.
and they don't have to be guys. They don't have to go to CA classes. And so at the Fippen show, I think I might have got the first one. It was for $500, and Bill Owen gave it to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to go to the Scottsdale Art School, and it really helped me. That was a huge changing point for my art career, was to get that nod and a little help from some guys for that. Um, and so since then, Tyler Crow was another one that came through the ranks of that. Brandon Bailey, where we just want to help people with their artwork. That's the basis of it, and so we offer scholarships. Anybody that wants one can apply for these through our website. It doesn't have to be a CA mentor. You can go to Scottsdale Art School or other workshops and hone your craft. I guess when I was growing up, I used to see a lot more people painting and drawing, and you had to. There wasn't the iPhone and all this other stuff going on. So I personally worry that now that the youth, they have so much other stuff going on, they never find out if they have this talent or not. So if
Well,
we can push that by any means
yes.
to educate and help with that talent, I think it's a good thing.
Well, and so many schools don't even have art programs now.
They've taken it out of everywhere. It's so sad.
I mean, how do you get interested if you not even interested? You may have the interest, but you still, I think, need somebody going, wow, that's good. You should
Yep.
read this. That
Yep.
reassurance, just like when you won an award, you go, oh, that means that gives me accreditation for my own
Yep.
who I am and what I am. And if you
Yep.
don't win those things, if you don't ever have the opportunity because you don't even have an art program, then that's
We have a lot of kids that come through the workshops here in Texas, and it's incredible what they don't have access to. And when they come to these workshops, and we'll talk with them, and just even the fact that they haven't seen horses or cattle in real life before or got to draw from life. And so they get to do that. But we send them home with some materials and some paper and some pens, and we give some of them scholarships. And those scholarships are more than their family will make in a whole year. And so they have this one really talented kid in a family that's artistic and can draw. And there really is some incredible talent with these youth kids. But just like you said, they don't have an opportunity to go anywhere with it. No,
no.
there's nobody at the schools pushing them. There's no outlets for them at all. And so it dies off. It doesn't get used. It doesn't get honed. They don't do anything with it. And so, yeah, if we can, anything we can do to help, it's definitely necessary.
Yeah, and I think a lot of these kids, because they are so creative, they're really great at that. They're superstars at that, but they're terrible at a lot of other things because they don't have that other skill set.
Yep.
And most schools, especially in Texas, are going to go, are you a football player, are you a basketball player, are you an athlete? We value these, but we
Yep.
don't do that for the arts so much. And it's I mean, it's just as valuable, if not, right? And
Yep.
um, when I see that, it hurts. It's and I'm glad you guys are doing this because I didn't know about it. What's the website that they can go to?
It's under the cowboyartsofamerica.com. And on there is the Joe Beeler Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And there's forms to apply for scholarships. We're going to start putting up some of the workshops that we're going to have coming up this next spring. The CA is going to do, and we'll have a lot of positions available for people to come take those classes. We're going to try to do that out on a ranch somewhere. We did one a few years ago in Alpine, Texas. It was kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
Give people an opportunity to get out and kind of eat off a chuck wagon a little bit and just taste the dust a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And so tell me and tell everybody who's watching this, what's going on with the CA now?
What's going on with the CA right now? We have our show coming up in Fort Worth the first weekend in November.
And that's every year, right?
Every year. It's traditionally it was in October for a long time.
Yep. Years.
We've moved it to the first weekend in November here in Fort Worth. It just fits better with all the schedules. We're going to do a couple big educational deals here that are free to the public and to come see the artwork for free. On Saturday, we're going to have a chuck wagon breakfast, lunch free to the public. We're going to have about 60 easels set up in the room amongst the artwork.
Mm.
Anybody can come in and paint with us.
Mm.
We're going to have models in there. All the CA guys will be in there helping. It'll be a free demonstration teaching deal all day long. We're really pushing. I'm really pushing, and so is the dealer, just to push the educational side of this, why this is so important out there, especially this day and age, even more so. So we're going to have that. We're always looking for new members. Um, we've got two guest artists this year, Howard Post and William Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're going to bring some work, and they get to show alongside us. I'm really excited for both of these guys to be there. I think it'll be a great addition to our show.
That's a
Um,
first, right? They haven't done that
that's
before.
a well, it's a first in a long time. I went back and read a bunch of history, and when they started the CA, the second or third year, they actually had satellite artists, which was their version of guest artists, and
Hmm.
Fred Harmon was one of those that did the
Oh,
Red Rider, and
interesting.
that's how he became a CA member. Was a guest artist for a couple of years, and then he signed on. And so they'd done it in the past, and I kind of thought this would be a neat way to honor these guys a little bit. Our group is fans of theirs, and just should make for a fun show.
And how many members now are there at the CA?
I believe right now we have 16, 17 members, and I believe we're looking at a few new people this year.
Mm-hmm. And do you add members every year, or is it just it's
Not
year?
every year, no. Kind of when they come along, and when I got in 14, they hadn't added anybody in 2 years, and they didn't put anybody in for maybe 3 years after me.
Hmm.
So there was a pretty big gap there.
And what do you think the challenges are for Western art and the cowboy artists of America?
And nowadays, there's so many avenues to market your work. Along with trying to find people that they understand what the Cowboy Artists of America means and what it stands for and why it's important. There's a lot of Western painters out there that are wonderful painters. It doesn't necessarily mean they're Cowboy Artists of America material, and that's okay. They don't have to be. Um, the group was really built on the tradition of Russell and Remington, and kind of keeping that honor,
Mm-hmm.
keeping things correct. And so it's nice to have that. There's off the wall work out there all the time. And so I think maybe this has been a really good basis for everything to kind of come off of, and keep that grounding. Um, when I look for artists for the CA, I want somebody that wants to be in there, that understand what it is, and it is an honor. I still feel honored every day that they put me in there. I'm still very shocked they put me in there. Um, but to have somebody that wants to be in there, understands that and that lifestyle, and has an appreciation for it. They don't have to be from the West. Will James wasn't from the West. Charlie Russell wasn't. Frank Tenney Johnson, but they loved it and they had a real appreciation for it. And those guys were their friends, and they didn't want to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's the guys that I want. That's me personally. That's who I want in there, that understands the magic of it and why it's important.
Yeah. And so, is there a website that people can go to find more information about Cowboy Artists of America?
Yeah, just on our main cowboyartsofamerica.com. And there's information on there. And I think we're about to put a deal up there. And it was funny. I found an old thing in Western Horseman magazine from 1972. All the ads were in black and white. It had the Louis Ortega rawhide braiding, where you could buy one of his
Right.
Bozals for $10. And it had the ad in there for the Cowboy Artists of America, a little teeny corner page ad. And it said, send in your resume with $5 to be juried into the Cowboy Artists of America. And at one point, that's how they sent in photos, and you'd get juried in to bring your work. And so we're actually going to start doing that again. We're going to put a little deal out and send in your portfolio, and we'd love to see it.
And it's open to male and female, or just men?
It's never been closed to females.
Yeah.
That's kind of the funny thing that's out there, is the CA has actually asked a couple women through the years to be in there, and they were uh I don't think they wanted to deal with all the boys' games, would be my guess. They understood that it was a little boys group, and that's what it is. But it's never been a no. We've talked about a few women artists that are just incredible to put in there over the years. Um, it's open. It's wide open.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, just the way the world's going to continue to move forward. We have to look at those things and figure out, okay, is this still
Yeah.
current? you know? Uh,
Good art is good art, and,
Yeah.
and that's what it should come down to.
Well, and I feel Western art is always going to be, there's always going to be an audience for Western art, period. That's what
Yeah.
and things will change, things will move, but the West is the West. It's real America.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
heartland.
Yeah.
And people, just like you yearn to get out to be on the ranches, I think a lot of Americans yearn to have that.
Yeah.
that stability.
I think that I think the image, that image, whether it's a bucking horse or cattle or just a great scene with some sagebrush in it, it's an escape for people to go to. Whether you imagine you're out there for a second or you've smelt it before, or you've been there before,
Mhm.
and to have that for a moment and have those senses and that emotion, I think that's really important.
What do you think our hurdles are with, keeping that ethos alive?
The big thing I see right now is the whole advent of AI, which is really crazy. Um, and just all the computer software out there that comes along with it. There's a lot of plagiarism going on, um, with deceased artists and living artists, and I
Yep.
know plagiarism is supposed to be the biggest form of flattery,
Hmm.
but at the same point, I feel like some of the people that are doing it, you're missing the boat on the journey. And that's always been around. I'm sure you've seen it longer than I have. It's been around forever. People are always going to copy something that's good.
Yes.
But I think now with AI, I think that the creators and the artists themselves are losing touch with where they're getting their material. Um, and I think that's a big part of that you're really missing a big part of the journey and the experience by not going out and gathering that reference yourself, or meeting that person that you want to paint, or having some connection to that. Uh,
Hmm.
and so, with AI now, I could just type in, I want a bucking horse under some clouds, and it'll pop it out for me, and I can retrace it on the canvas. But it doesn't have a lot of meaning when it comes out the other end.
Yeah. And they can even put in, I want a Teal Blake
That's
bucket.
it. And
Yeah.
it'll come out like that style. And
Yeah. Have
I'd
you?
rather have something man-made where I can see the marks and the pencil marks and the
Yeah.
mistakes. And I want to know that there was some love that went into it somehow.
Yeah. I think at some point we'll have things that'll tell us if it was AI generated, or you'll have to say this was all handmade for
Yep.
everything, you
Yep.
know?
It's coming.
Oh, yeah, no, it's definitely coming in many ways. you know, I could be gone and dead and they could take my hologram and, you know,
This might not be you right now. This could,
yeah.
this could be
No,
all.
I'm pretty sure it is. It feels like me, but again, we'll let AI decide that.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and that may give things like the CA an advantage in an odd way because it brings the culture with the art, not just the art,
Yes.
which is interesting. I hadn't really thought of it until now, but I think maybe that will become more important to the way we view art is there a background to it that's more than just the artist, but a culture?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you got now planned going on in your life presently, art wise or otherwise?
Presently, I can show you around the studio a little bit
Oh, yeah.
here.
So those who are
I'm,
watching, not watching,
I'm a book fiend.
yeah, he's got showing me a million books with lots of beautiful little paintings and interspersed and other.
I've got all my great old Western pulp books and all my Dane Coolidge books,
Yeah.
all my Will James and everything. And then, so I'm getting stuff ready for the CA show right now. I've
Yeah.
got stacked up in here everywhere, and commissions and designs for people. And show you the eagle area. Can you see that, Mark?
Yeah. So what we're looking at for people who aren't watching and just listening to it, he's got his easel with skulls and including a jackalope, I might add. Um,
Yep.
for
Yep.
those who don't know what a jackalope is, go look it up.
There's
and
my Will James and my Maynard Dixon
oh,
together
yeah,
right
there
there.
you go. It's got a plateau beaded belt as well.
Mhm.
The Sunset magazine by Dixon. Yeah, it looks. Yeah, I like all that. I'm saying, yeah, that's inspiration right there, right?
This is the artist. Yeah, this is my little happy place. My father, my mom is a great antiquer. So I was drugged tons of antiquing when I was little. My mom's family was all from back east, from Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I've got the antiquing gene in me, and so growing up with Dad's studio, he always had so many neat little things, and he'd saved from all his travels, and I became a collector as well. So yeah.
So, yeah, I see about 20 1900 to 1930 Navajo textiles stacked up.
Yeah, I've got my good little pile here that I need to get you to look at one day and actually tell me what I've got, because I've been
And Red
collecting.
Mesa 1920 on the top. I can tell you that. Crystal 1900 on the one below that. Yeah. That may even be a little earlier. Yeah. That's a Crystal 1900.
Yeah.
saddle blanket 1920s. I can see most of them. Yeah, I can tell what they are. I bought 73 rugs yesterday.
Oh, geez.
I came home a wet noodle. My
Are there still places that they are stockpiled or collectors have
Oh
them
yeah.
like
Mhm.
that just haven't hit the market yet, and they're just
Yeah. Yeah, this is a man who had his family had a feed store up in north part of Arizona and
yeah.
north, and they'd trade out for different things, feed, different types of things. It was
And they
all
were in good condition after all these years.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it happens. Uh, I've bought trading posts, family stuff. I just did that 2 weeks ago. No, it's
Yep.
still out there, especially in Arizona. I think there's
Yep.
still it's out there.
Do you still kind of hunt the back roads quite a bit? Are you still do you sneak around and go to all the little trading posts and Ganado and go to all those
Well, I love
places?
to go. I mean, there's nothing to buy there at those places for me, at least.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
that a lot of the things that they get for their trading posts come from they don't come off the reservation. Those
Yeah.
because the Navajos made all that for sale, right? That was how they made their living. So they didn't hang on to it; they sold it, and so they have to get it from people like me to some extent.
Yeah.
I love to go to those places. My favorite is Totalina Trading Post, which is an active trading post, and that Mark Winter runs and has, and it's a real thing.
Yeah.
With real people bringing in Navajo weavings that he buys, and it's a step back in time. It was opened in 1909. It's a beautiful place. And,
Wow.
Ganado Trading Post, same. Hubble is also nice, but those places people should go and see because they're not going to be many around.
No, they're not. And that I like to touch those things, the handmade stuff.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of that stuff anymore.
Mm-mm. Well, go see the Totalina Trading Post. That's
Yep.
it's up by Two Great Hills. It's an hour north of Gallup, and
Okay.
yeah, 491, and yeah, no, that's one to just go in, and Mark will probably let you trade him a little watercolor, and he can
Perfect.
hang out in his trailer in back, which I've done on occasion for a week, and go see the area.
Yep. I've got a cowboy buddy of mine that I run with, and he's a really good hand. And for a couple of years now, we've been talking about it. We have this. We want to take a truck and trailer through the Navajo nations and buy up a bunch of the little res ponies
Yeah,
and just make the trip through there and camp out. And I know a couple of the guys up there and a couple of the begays, and we've been planning this trip for a little while now, and we're trying to figure out what we can take that won't get stolen on our trip. And so we're planning the whole packing and all the stuff and everything. So it'll be a fun little photo journey as well.
yeah, no, yeah. Call up Mark and go hang out at his trailer.
Yeah.
Good
Yeah. I'm
location,
gonna have to see that.
close to Shiprock and all
Yep.
that. I'm sure there's a
Yep.
lot of livestock. Anywhere out on Denata, there's a lot of great
Yeah.
horses and cattle and all that stuff.
Yep.
Pretty great cowboys out there.
Oh, visually for me, the last time I went through there, I threw my bedroll out at Shiprock and just camped out there. And man, visually for me, that country and everything in it, and I don't care if it's a broke down truck out in the sage, it's just perfect.
Yeah.
Uh, I enjoy it.
Well, especially Shiprock. I mean, that's a magical,
Yeah.
spiritual place for the, Dene. So
Yeah.
I went there for when they had the solar eclipse. I went out there to
I
right.
bet that was wild.
That was wild.
Wow.
I was very wild. I was the only person out there. There was nobody
Wow.
there, and it was very quiet and very
Yep.
interesting.
Yep. Yep.
But
I took
that seemed like the right place to be for me.
I bet. Yeah. I took one of the other CA members with me, one of the younger guys with me, and we were headed up to the RCA trail ride in Utah. And so we were driving through Shiprock on the way. I told him the whole day that we were going to camp out there. And he says, "Oh yeah, okay, okay." And then after that, I proceeded to tell him about shapeshifters and skinwalkers for the
Yeah,
rest of 6 hours till we got there. When we got there, it was dark.
yeah.
And he says, "So we're going to get a hotel room." And I said, "No, no, we're throwing our bedrolls out." And I drove down one of the roads out in the backside of that thing, and we just threw him out. And I don't know if he slept at all that night. I think he stayed awake the entire night. I slept great. I thought it was beautiful. I took some incredible photos there the next morning. It's very magical place. It was
Oh
great.
yeah, that's exactly the word I would use. So, anything else that we haven't talked about or need to talk about?
I don't know. I don't know. Not that I know of. Buy Western artwork. It doesn't have to be from me, but support Western artwork.
Yeah, that's right. It's the basis of, who we are. At least it is for me. I grew up in the West, so, you
Yeah.
know, I've always, I think the first piece I ever recognized as art was a Peter Hurd.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. I was we had he gave paintings to the hospital in,
Yep.
in Portales. And I was like,
Yep.
that's nice. That's interesting. Yeah. Who's that guy?
I fell in love with, I'd heard about him for years, but it was weird. It's weird how our tastes change over time. And about 5 years ago, I really fell in love with his work again.
Yeah.
Kind of dove back into it, and it does have that Wyethie flavor to it.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and it's neat to see that it's almost a morbidy drama he has to his work, but it's interesting. I really do have a fascination with his work.
Oh, he's a great artist.
Yeah.
His egg tempera stuff and just
Mm-hmm.
amazing. You
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever gone to the portrait museum to see, his Lyndon Baines Johnson that he
I
did.
have. It's so weird. It's very weird.
you know, LBJ didn't care for it too much.
That's what I've heard. I heard he didn't like it at all.
He hated it. Yeah, I think it's a good portrait. Looked just like him, in my opinion.
Yep.
But it's hanging in the portrait museum. Yeah, see, because he was an artist that just, he was in Hondo Valley, which is close to where I grew up. So
Yeah. Yeah.
all that area feels like my backyard to some extent.
Well, and you could tell he had an appreciation for that area. He loved it. When you look at those paintings for that area there, you know exactly where it is, and you can feel it. I mean, you can
Yep.
feel that distance there with his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah,
really a great.
a lot of open horizons. Yep, and a great family for those people
Yeah.
who don't know about Peter Hurd, but go look up the whole Andrew Wyeth, NC Wyeth, all those.
Oh my gosh, what a rabbit hole that is! That whole
Yeah.
thing.
to say the least. Yeah, one of the great, family generational. And you've got it too, right? Maybe your son will be the third artist too.
My dad's mom, my grandmother, was very talented painting wise, and
Mhm.
her father could paint very well and was very talented. And so it's interesting to see that passed down like that.
Mhm.
It's a great thing. It really is, but it really is interesting for me to see it. And my boy, he can draw. He actually, I hate to say it, he's sculpting. He's got the Play-Doh that he can bake in the oven. He's been making Pokemon toys for about the last 4 months, and we've stepped on all 1,000 of them.
Uh-huh.
But he's very talented at it. He's got the gene.
How old is he?
He's 9.
Yeah, that's the perfect time. That's
Yep.
when you get your at fourth grade, third grade stuff. That's really when you
Yep.
encourage them. They just
He's got a little easel here in my studio, and when I paint, he can come in here and paint with me, and I don't push him too hard, and
yeah.
he's a little creative. I can see it right off the bat. Very moody, like the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, that comes to that's goes with
Yep.
the genetics as well.
Yes, it does.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time, Teal, and to spend and just
For
getting,
sure.
and where can people find your art, by the way? I want to know that, and your website and
You can
your,
find my artwork in your gallery. Um, I don't really have anything for sale on the website. I got a couple of prints on there. It's just tealblake.com, and my kids' books on there.
yep,
The J is for Jackalope. Um, but yeah, I guess anything coming up would probably be the CA show or your gallery.
yep. And then you also have a nice Instagram account too, maybe.
I I do. That's probably the best way to see anything current is
Yeah.
on there.
And that just Teal Blake?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's under Teal Coke Blake, but I think if you just type in Teal Blake, it pops up pretty
Yeah.
quick.
In fact, it does because I did that and it was Teal Coke Blake. Yes. And and it's a great Instagram site. I like it in the way that you just, it's art. It's all about art.
It's supposed to be organic. It really is all this stuff. It's funny. I see everybody get ready for their shots on their posts on Instagram and get all their stuff all pretty. And man, it's artwork. It's supposed to be organic and natural. We're not posing crap here. It's going out.
I would like to see a fish on there and occasionally, and maybe a lizard or a snake or.
Yep. I draw plenty of those. Luca's got stack. I'll show you. I'll put some on there.
I want to
I
see
draw a
some,
lot of Pokemon stuff too.
I want to see some real ones too. I want to see a live one. Take
Yep.
a photo. Yeah.
Yep.
No, I post those on mine and they're like, oh, you shouldn't do that. That's not art related. I'm like, I don't care. I like them. you know?
I put up an antelope running alongside the truck yesterday from the last time I was out in Las Vegas, New Mexico, visiting a buddy that runs a ranch out there.
Oh yeah.
There's a ton of antelope out there, and I was raised with them in Montana, and it's
Yeah.
so I put up a video, just one run alongside the truck, and I got attacked, and somebody said that I was inhumane, and he hoped that karma got me.
Huh.
And I thought, we're in such a weird time right now that I got attacked for putting up an antelope running alongside the road.
Yeah. I don't even understand that.
Ah,
Yeah.
oh well.
Well, all I know is when I was in Wyoming a couple of years ago, I was getting gas and I was looking around and every single person had these big grills on their truck. I got a truck. And I'm like, I talked to the guy next to me and I go, what's with the grill, man? And everybody goes, antelope, deer. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
we didn't have a lot of, we had those, but not like that where I grew up.
Yep.
And then I proceeded to take a back road through the Wyoming, and
How many did you hit?
I didn't hit any, but you know what? I was going about 35 miles an hour because I could have easily hit about 20 of them.
Yep.
Yeah, it was
Yep.
like, oh, yeah, I see why you have to.
You get in places up there, and it's just you're going to hit deer. It doesn't matter where you live, you're going to hit deer up there, or antelope or something. There's just so many, and when the herds come through and they're migrating or whatever it is, and at night, it's you're bound to.
Yes. Yeah, now I get it. Yeah, now I get it. So I think you're okay just showing one driving by. All right. Well, thank you on short notice to come on. I appreciate that.
For
And,
sure. Thank you for having me on, Mark. I appreciate it.
all right. How's it? Is it hot in Texas now, or is it finally broke?
You know, we got a little bit of rain last night. It kind of drizzled all night. And when I woke up this morning, I've got a little herd of chickens I keep at the house for my boy to have a chore. And
Uh-huh.
we got up this morning to let the chickens out. It was 68 degrees. And it's
Oh, wow.
probably that's the coolest it's been here since last winter.
Yeah, I
So
believe it.
I'll take it.
Yeah, a new world for heat now in Texas.
Yeah.
It is. All right. Well, very good. We'll talk very soon. If you need anything.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Teal Blake.